welcome into our Glean and Snowflake webinar. We're so excited to have you here today. This webinar is going to be all about conversational and analytics for every employee. We have some exciting content for you. As we get started here today, we'll dive into an introduction of Glean, Snowflake, and how we're working together. We have an awesome fireside chat planned with a mutual customer who's going to share how they're using both Snowflake and Glean today. And of course, what would this be without being able to see it in action? So we've included a live demo of the Glean and Snowflake integration. And if you stay towards the end, we're going to have a Q&A session as well as share some future roadmap. So with that, I'd like to quickly introduce our speakers. My name is Jess Urich. I am the Partner Solutions Engineer here at Glean. I have the awesome opportunity of not only working with our partners like Snowflake, but also with our customers. So I'm excited to bring you this awesome webinar. With me here today, I have Timur Yarnall. He is the AI Partner Director at Snowflake. Timur?
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jess. Wonderful to be here. I run our AI product partnerships at Snowflake. After having worked with Sridhar at Neva, I couldn't resist joining him here at Snowflake, and very excited to talk about the use cases with Brex and support the partnership with Glean.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, we have an amazing customer speaker coming in as well, Samit Marwaha from Brex. He is their head of data. Samit, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Jessica. Yeah, happy to be here. Appreciate everyone having me. My name's Samit. I lead the data team here. That includes data science, data analytics, data engineering at Brex. And big fans of Glean and Snowflake.
Thanks. What a great opportunity this is going to be to get to hear from both of you about how you're using the tools. So let's dive into what the challenge really is that we're seeing today in the enterprise. And really, that's that data lives in two separate worlds. We have this world of our unstructured data where our documents, our calls, our messages, essentially our day to day work life live. And then we have this structured data, the understanding of what our sales figures are, our product analytics, KPIs, maybe how long it's going to take to build a part or do research, our legacy data. Bringing those two worlds together can be extremely difficult. And that's where this Glean and Snowflake partnership really comes into play. Glean has a really strong understanding and builds a knowledge graph around that unstructured data. And Snowflake, well, they have a great deep knowledge and understanding of your structured data. So bringing them together helps bridge this gap. So I'll let Timur talk a little bit about the Snowflake side of things.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I think we're, as Sridhar loves to say, is we talk, and Christian, our chief product officer, is very simple. I mean, we are the AI and data cloud. So this incredible revolution in generative AI unlocked this ability to talk to unstructured data in a way that had never been done before. But with so much data being structured, living in platforms like Snowflake, what do we do about that? So we abstract that all away. As we say, we're easy, connected, and trusted. And we abstract away, is it structured data, semi-structured, or unstructured data, and make it as easy as possible for business owners and analysts and engineers to talk to the data, extract the analytics they need, perform different AI functions, and most importantly, make sure we provide top tier governance and security, which is something that our customers count on us across all verticals, across government, across countries and regions. And so I think this partnership with Glean is fantastic in terms of the growth and engagement and the usage of Glean from the application side. And Brex is a perfect, I think, customer use case and example of the power of this.
Absolutely. You said it great. The Snowflake side of things really is the data experts, right? That structured side. And Glean brings in the unstructured data. So together we can bring in this single unified experience for users to unlock the analytics that, our data teams are already using in Snowflake, but to broaden that adoption across our organization with the integration with Glean. And I think that opportunity is going to really vastly speed up how our teams are working. With Glean, we get this enterprise knowledge across our business. So now we're bringing this context of what are we doing day to day into the conversation around our analytics. We can actually ground this information in source data. So everything that we're doing is grounded in Glean source knowledge around how your company operates and the documents and data we use. And then our agents allow us to create these task oriented workflows. So from a day to day, Glean is speeding that up. When we add in this Snowflake integration, well, now we're taking these natural queries that we were probably seeing in Snowflake, and we're opening up that opportunity to build them into workflows and data sets that our organizations are using day to day. And this real time insights makes it easy for our teams to quickly get that insight from Snowflake. I think that's an amazing opportunity where now data analytics teams are getting data faster and grounded in that company knowledge. And of course, all of this being ran by agentic reasoning and workflows. So I think there's a lot of opportunity around Snowflake and Glean for our data analytics teams and further.
Absolutely. And also, I'll just chime in briefly. I think what I love about this partnership is I think we're leading by example in terms of unlocking data silos. I think Sumit will probably talk about some of the biggest challenges are just making sure users have access to the data sources that they need and making sure it's enabled in a way that they want to process. So I love this partnership. And I think we're all jointly putting the customer first and the user first. And with Snowflake, we have launched applications like Snowflake Intelligence that connect to data sources. In this case, with Brex loving Glean and the access point and making this connectivity available through MCP. I mean, this is, I think, meeting users where they want with the data that they want. And I think there are other players in the ecosystem who could learn from our example. So I'm proud to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And the fact that we're able to bring this data to users where they work, but in a way that's secure, everything backed by the native permissions in Glean and the Snowflake security, I think is a huge differentiator and can really help teams move faster. So, with that being said, I think it's time to hear a little bit more from Samit and move into our fireside chat. So, I'll go ahead and start off by asking Samit, can you tell us a little bit more about how you and your company are actually using Snowflake today?
Yeah, I mean, we use Snowflake for all of our data needs, right? So that's kind of our main data warehouse where it stores, some unstructured data. We also have our kind of core data source of truth there. And we're constantly building new tables and even now with the kind of Cortex analysts, semantic views, et cetera, to help give folks access to the data they need, however they need it. So we're really kind of using it everywhere inside of our business, and it powers all of our analytics.
That's awesome to hear. So it's really important that your teams have access to this data pretty quickly, then I would assume.
Yeah, they're constantly asking for data faster, data wherever they're already working. And I think that's the key thing. It's like they don't even want to go to the specific UI for some BI tool. They want in their Slack conversations and their Glean requests and wherever it is, and their usage of the Glean MCP right in their cursor, UI. They just want to make sure they can get that within their current workflow. And I think what's exciting is the combination of these tools really help unlock that particular workflow. You no longer have to jump and open up a new browser, pull something down, download it, put it somewhere else, and start to analyze it. It's kind of all put wherever you're already working.
Yeah, so it sounds like something that was important when you were kind of looking for solutions was something that met your employees where they worked. So what was the moment that really sparked the search to kind of harness this type of solution beyond, you know, just one or the other, bringing them both together? And kind of how did you end up using Glean?
Yeah, I mean, we were big fans of Glean. I think even before this agentic kind of AI world that we were in, where its enterprise search is truly kind of game changing for our company. Like it allows everyone to have the ability to kind of ask questions and get answers without having to ask someone, "Hey, where's this drive link? Like, who do you not think knows about this particular topic?" It has such a great system of search, but also kind of permissioning to make sure you're not getting access to things you shouldn't have access to. So that really kind of attracted everyone at the company to start using this for their questions and their solutions. So it's been a huge push for everyone to start going first to Glean before they even ask a colleague, etc., and then kind of try to see where they can get to from there. So overall, just been really excited with Glean, and part of it is a lot of the connections we were looking for were already built there, and took very little in terms of additional engineering time or kind of IT time to get things set up. So it was great to see that level of kind of interoperability already built into the product.
Yeah, absolutely. The ability to, kind of start right away and start bringing data in and using the product, and then, the growth that you've seen through it, I think really speaks to how your team is using it. While we're here in the fireside chat, I'd also love to hear from all of you in the audience as to which way your teams are currently accessing the data from your cloud. I mean, we're hearing from Samit. I'd love to hear from all of you as well. Now, as we're kind of hearing all about how you're accessing this data, I know that Timber, we have some questions for you as well around knowing that Samit and the Brex team were able to accomplish this. Can you share some considerations around what you would recommend Snowflake customers like Brex take into account when they're looking for these types of solutions?
Sure. Yeah. And, part of my personal journey, just to note, I mean, I was actually part of the Glean team a few years ago and loved my experience there, and love that I get to work on this and as part of my role at Snowflake. And I think that uh, the power of Glean and Snowflake combined is that so much of the complexity is abstracted away from what enterprise users need to worry about. There's certainly no concern about provisioning and compute capacity. For example, I think that's far down in the stack. But starting with, I think the power of Snowflake is as this AI data layer, and as a company that I think really democratized access to things like SQL analytics, right? I think that's one of the reasons that Snowflake has been such an amazing company. But now, as we move into that world of generative AI, and we're about democratizing access to natural language queries, but what that requires is that clean, transformed data. We like to use the term across, bronze, silver, gold in terms of readiness to put into use, and making sure that as much of that data is that gold phase across structured, unstructured, semi-structured data. I think that's important to consider. What stages is your data preparation? But I love what Sumit said in terms of the engagement and really just focusing on growing the usage internally, because part of that, and the mention about the fact that Glean has so many pre-built connectors is tremendously important, right? How are you going to get people access to data? Because the moment that an enterprise user searches in Slack or searches in their Drive and comes up with an empty result, or the one they know that they want to get, they know it's somewhere, but they're not getting it, right? It shuts off. And I think the foundational value proposition of Glean is being able to take that, those disparate inputs and show it in one unified point. But I think one of the things that maybe Sumit didn't mention overtly, but it's implicit in that, are things like role-based access control and inherited permissions, the real-time nature of it. And so that works incredibly well between Snowflake and Glean, with the fact that governance is such a strong aspect of Snowflake. I mean, that's what our 12,000 enterprise customers count on us for. And the fact that Glean can inherit that, make sure it's real time. And so there's not this concern that even with the power of generative AI, that somebody's getting access to data that they shouldn't have access to. That's tremendously powerful. So I think those are some of the considerations. other things that I think Snowflake helps to abstract away are just things like, the semantic model, under the data. We've launched a open source semantic initiative where we're working across the ecosystem. I know Glean has been very supportive of that. Other things like with Glean Assistant and just what we're running, things like model choice. Is there a preference within your enterprise for Claude or ChatGPT, or are you trying to experiment with even an open source model? So again, that's something that we can abstract away, and I think the Snowflake Cortex platform brings a lot of that capability and choice to our partners and to our customers that Glean has been able to take advantage of. So with all of that, I think that's been very powerful combination. And I'm happy to be a Glean user on the Snowflake side. So jumping here, I'm very glad that I have access to the tool on an ongoing basis. I use it regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said two things from that really just stood out in my mind, and I want to reiterate is the first thing being the data is super important, right? Those standards of data, that gold standard, getting that data ready for the use both in Snowflake, but also for the Glean aspect, right? In order for Glean to leverage Snowflake, your data has to be, in a good place, and that's an important part of just leveraging Snowflake across the board. But also I think the big piece is being able to find things quickly in a way that's secure, knowing that my data is only accessible to me, but I can quickly go and find what I'm looking for. I don't have access to things maybe I shouldn't. And additionally, from a Snowflake side of things, knowing that my data always stays and lives in Snowflake, we're not moving data back and forth between Glean and Snowflake, I think is an added a piece of peace of mind for many of us as it comes to making sure everything's secure in our
Yeah,
environment.
absolutely. I like the catchphrase, we're bringing AI to your data, not the other way around, right? And I think that's very important, like catchphrase to emphasize with our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of bringing AI to your data, Samit, you shared a couple of use cases of how your team is using Snowflake and some screenshots I'll bring up in a moment. But would you mind sharing a little bit about how your team is using Glean with Snowflake today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's great about our data in Snowflake, it is the source of truth for everything from how much revenue did this customer bring in yesterday to who is the AE on this account right now. And we're doing kind of constant work to clean that up and make it great for our reporting. So why not like have that accessible when someone asks a question like, who do I talk to about kind of reaching out to Glean or Snowflake about signing up for Brex. And I think that that's been kind of like the piece that has unlocked a lot of the usages. In the past, it would be kind of what Glean does. It tries to figure it out, searches maybe in Slack or Drive for the last person who talked about something, but we have the answer. It's in our database. We have records of kind of all of our information there. And so why not bring in that fresh information to make sure that answer's always correct? And it's not just referencing something that happened a few weeks ago. That live nature of how data works at Brex has been something where it's been super valuable to have that integration directly in there. So we're doing things like when it comes to like a deal review and execs and other folks want to understand how things are going with a particular sales deal. Well, there's a bunch of data exhaust coming out of Salesforce data. We're talking gong call transcripts. We're talking Salesforce cases or customer support tickets, etc. But all kind of relate to how that's going. In the past, it would be something of an analysis or just talking to someone who's really close to it. But now you can just ask in Glean, how is it going with that particular deal? And sure enough, like it can index all of that information in and connect into Slack, Drive, all these other sources to give you a really complete picture of, hey, this is what happened last week. Here are what the blockers are. Here's what we kind of can do next. And what's super powerful is it can then prompt you to take an action to either update something in Snowflake and make that, or sorry, update something in Salesforce to make that really, really actionable so that, you can kind of start to think through the workflow of making that data even richer for everyone to access. So that's one of the examples. Just also just being able to like ask simple questions on the fly and get that answer directly in Slack, which Glean integrates great into, or Glean directly, um, has been really powerful because not every data question is an analysis. Sometimes people just want to know, like, hey, what is the trend on this account, or what is the month over month kind of revenue look like? And that shouldn't require talking to a data person. It shouldn't require SQL. It should require natural language questions, which Snowflake enables, but some people don't even know the Snowflake UI exists. They just want to use Glean like they do for all their other questions. And so this enables us to really answer those questions directly in their existing workflows and where they're already searching for all the other things that they're wondering about. So that's been really kind of one way we feel like is unlocked a bunch of productivity and incremental kind of data-driven decision making within Brex, which has been exciting.
That's awesome. I love to hear that you're not only enabling your team to, be almost more independent and work faster, but enabling them to take action, right? We're not just creating agents that give information. We're creating agents and workflows with our structured and unstructured data that prompt our teams to start taking action, whether that be updating Salesforce or whatever that might be with the data they're using. So that's an awesome opportunity to hear about.
Definitely.
So, while we're on the topic of how your teams use it, let's talk a little bit about the roadmap and what you think the Glean and Snowflake roadmap would be next. Where do you see the value coming from Glean and Snowflake moving forward?
Yeah, I think within agents and in general, like how those tools are being developed, I think there's a lot of kind of power that Snowflake is building in their UI that would love to get moved to Glean so that we can access things like Snowflake agents and Snowflake intelligence and really try to think of this as like a kind of consistent flow of, hey, they figured something out, like let's make sure that's integrated into all the other work that maybe isn't captured by those particular tools. And so really excited for kind of more of those things to be enabled within Glean. And then, there's a lot of work I would put as like what kind of Quad Code and some of these agentic coding tools have done, which have been really useful when it comes to like setting up context, setting up skills for doing specific types of work within Glean that hopefully can be enabled inside of Glean so that you don't have to kind of like create custom prompts every time you're trying to build an agent to get it to instruct to use Snowflake correctly. It's like, we'd love to have a skill out there that's just like, here's a query writing or a query context building skill, right? It's like, okay, go collect all this information and create a question to the Snowflake Cortex analyst that actually kind of has a bit more structure, generally kind of can be kind of answered and guided towards the right Snowflake analyst or Snowflake Cortex analyst. So those are the things I would love to see from kind of just kind of continuing to innovate on that agentic kind of solving of problems that I feel like has been cutting edge out there in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be great to see kind of where this partnership grows. And we have some exciting news for all of you here. Tim, we're continuing to deepen this partnership with Snowflake. Do you want to share a little bit about what's next with our roadmap together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think context of I think our direct partnership, and then just kind of in kind of what's happening in the ecosystem with moving so quickly. So having Glean's integration with Snowflake Cortex Analyst is really just the start of the partnership. I think for us, so that basic unlock of agent to agent interoperability that is allowing business users to access their data across Glean and Snowflake, call Snowflake data directly from Glean's UI. I think that's a core part of supporting MCP standards that have emerged so rapidly and are very important point of usage. And I think we also have to be on a bit from an experimentation standpoint, right? These MCP standards have emerged so quickly, but then also the flip side is true. So as we're looking ahead into the next few months, the other side will be true where Snowflake's client, as we launch that, the same insights will be available inside Snowflake through Snowflake Intelligence. So we'll be able to ask Snowflake Intelligence questions that call Glean via MCP server and make that available the other way around. And to me, what I love about that in terms of the bidirectional partnership and what we have is it emphasizes that with things moving incredibly fast in generative AI implementations and what does the office assistant look like, it's really about, I think, putting the customer experience first. And for customers like Brex that love Glean, have implemented, and they also use Snowflake, if there's a desire to have Glean as kind of the initial UI or the experience, the Snowflake MCP implementation and tie-in is perfect. As we at Snowflake are launching Snowflake Intelligence, which has incredible capability, maybe some different set of connectors, et cetera, as you balance that, that might be a place that a user wants to start, and that that's going to be enabled by MCP as well. And I think you can actually extrapolate that across other platforms as well. I don't think anybody in the ecosystem knows where we're going to be 9-12 months from now, and MCP and that connectivity is incredibly important to support so that we unlock the innovation. And I think there's some great questions coming in on the chat about why do it this way or why do it that way. And I think, again, it's about having the secure connectivity that honors and respects the access controls, but actually allows the innovation to flow. Again, with some of my greatest frustration with companies in the ecosystem that curtail access even when it's secure and governed. That's not a direction that any of us want to go.
Absolutely. MCP is a big part of the conversation. I'm asked quite frequently about Snowflake and Glean MCP, so the fact that that's coming is very exciting. And also, the integration with intelligence agents and the ability to start, calling those as well, coming out eventually in the next few months, is going to be really great as well. So it's exciting to see all this coming. I think it very much aligns with some of the exciting things Samit mentioned he'd like to see in the product. So very excited to see all of this. As we're getting ready to see all of this in action, I'm going to bring up a screenshot that Samit was very nice to share of an example of what an agent with Snowflake could look like. Now, keep in mind, this is an example, and I'm going to show a real life demo. But Samit, would you mind just quickly giving us a quick couple sentences about what this agent is doing for us here?
Yeah, this is that kind of like deal review agent that I was mentioning, where it really does an exhaustive search across Brex in a way that like would take someone hours, right, to go through Salesforce data, Gmail, Slack threads, Google Calendars, Snowflake, reading documents, and anything on Gong calls, etc. Right? That's significant work that we're able to save by simply just asking Glean, like once we set this up, how's it going with a particular opportunity that we're pursuing? And I think that's been what we were kind of like really excited about, is that replicative, like the ability to now take this, make it really easy for anyone at the company to catch up on something without that kind of conversation with the AE, etc. So that's exactly what this is doing, where it really is working through searching almost every possible source I think we could think of. And then, of course, deciding, is the deal actually won, lost, or is it kind of continuing to be worked, to hopefully also present what that story is on, hey, why did we win? Why did we lose? Or what's going on right now? To hopefully also lead to a series of actions that we can hopefully take from this. So that branch routing at the end was pretty critical, because we obviously want to kind of keep that kind of learning process going when it comes to wins and losses and just ongoing deals.
That's awesome. I'm seeing, you're not only using the structured data, you're searching across your company, and you're using Salesforce and the branching to make decisions. This is a really well built out agent. So thank you so much for sharing that. We on the Glean side built something similar. It can't obviously be exactly like what you have, but we built something similar to share with all of you today. So I'm going to go ahead and share something similar to what Samit has built, but from Glean. So I'm going to get the demo up, and this is our Glean UI. I went ahead and logged in, and I'm ready to go. Now, there's a few ways that I could find my agent. I can come in and search for it, or I can just start to type in the name of my agent. So I'm going to look for my customer 360 app. And here we can see, here's my customer 360 account snapshot agent. So this is very similar to what Samit mentioned, really helping our team understand what's going on with like an account, being able to look at it holistically, not just with our unstructured data, not just with the structured data, but bringing those two worlds together. So I have an example of a customer that we use. It's our testing customer here, Fraser Automotive, and I want to get a full understanding of what's going on. By clicking this run agent, it's going to run my Snowflake agent. Now, for the sake of time, I went ahead and ran it a little bit earlier. So let's take a look at what this agent's really doing. If we look at what's going on here, it's not just searching randomly. It's searching across my company knowledge for Fraser Automotive. It's looking in Salesforce. It's running Salesforce queries. It's going across Jira, searching my Slack, lots of company searching. But here's the important piece, that's structured data. This is going to be a lot harder for me to get on my own. I could probably go into all of those other apps, but getting the Snowflake knowledge in plain natural language is much harder. Here we can see we automatically generated the query for you. So you don't have to be an expert in SQL to start using the Snowflake Cortex and Glean integration. You can start using it today because we'll build out the SQL for you. And then it generates a response. So it takes all of this information from Snowflake to Salesforce and gives us an understanding. So in our case, what are the open opportunities? What is the summary we got from across our business, from the calls we're having and the Salesforce updates to what tickets do they have open? And that structured data piece. What are we learning from Snowflake? Well, in this case, we need to understand who's actually using our product, and that's stored in Snowflake. And so I quickly know that I have 901 engineers using our product at Fraser Automotive. So they're going to be a team that's heavily adopting and someone I want to work with and reach out to. Or maybe I want to work with product to make sure I'm boosting their usage of our product. I'm getting this information so much faster because the Glean agents are interacting with my structured and unstructured data to bring this information to my fingertips. And as Samit mentioned, we're not just giving you information. If I continue to scroll down here, we're giving you actionable items, or in this case, ways to update your Salesforce opportunity. If I'm an AE, I'm moving faster. I'm able to get a full understanding of an account and quickly do my updates all from within my Glean and Snowflake agent. So this is a great example as to where you can start accelerating your business with Glean today, using Snowflake intelligence and integrating that understanding and knowledge with Glean. So with that, we are right about at the end of our session. I do know that there were a few questions rolling in here, and I don't know that I'll have time for all of them, but I did want to answer a few that I saw coming in. There was a few about the Glean and Snowflake MCP. We are going to be releasing that soon, so keep an eye out for dates as that comes out. So we can see here coming soon, or Q4 will probably be the soonest that will be available. Let's see. What's the difference between natively connecting to Glean Snowflake and exposing an MCP server in Snowflake on a table or data set in Glean? Well, I mean, the biggest piece right now is the way Glean connects into Snowflake does require that Glean and Snowflake connection. So definitely something that we're going to work towards. That MCP piece is coming later. So we will see more opportunities and use cases around integrating Glean with Snowflake's MCP and using Glean's MCP with Snowflake coming out in the next quarter.
Yeah, and I'd add that I think that MCP is, again, it has emerged, has exploded on the scene, but it is an emerging standard that we all strongly support. That are some differences between native connectors and what happens there. So I think that's something that comes out with particular use cases and for specific customers and types of data that they want to access.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's one that I think is pretty interesting, and Samina, I'd actually like to hear your take on this. If Glean can reach out to Salesforce directly, right? Why do we want to use the Snowflake data? I think you've given me some examples over our conversations, so I think it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, obviously we're trying to pump as much into Salesforce too and make that a very rich data source, but so much of the context of what might be happening sometimes exists outside of it, or that it's like kind of maybe delayed to be put into Salesforce when you think of like just live revenue data or transaction information about a particular customer. Like we have that, we're uploading to Salesforce on some schedule, but why not just pull it directly from the right source so that we can update it in line so that you don't have anything delayed? So that ability to bring in live information is pretty key. And then there's also stuff you might clean up or enrich in Salesforce that happens outside as we make maybe models or decisions on the information coming out of that. So there's just sometimes a little bit of richer information when you kind of like take that information within Salesforce and add things to it. So that's exactly what we're kind of doing within our Snowflake Cortex Salesforce agent analyst that allows us to really improve the answers coming back as you're discussing things. But obviously, if you have access to Salesforce and really know what you're doing there, you could probably get a lot of the answers back. But is it that conversational back and forth that Glean allows with all the other information that exists even outside of that? Not sure. Depends. If you already know everything, great. You're the AE maybe on the deal, then you don't need to do this. But it's the people that don't even know where the opportunity is. They don't even use Salesforce. Like, let's just bring that directly to them with all this enriched information that we're using for our analytics and reporting outside of that particular tool.
No, I agree, right? Let's enrich and provide people with as much data as we can, right? Especially when it comes to our AEs and the accounts. If we have that information and insight, or maybe we're storing legacy information about that, it's definitely important that we have access to that.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing. I think another good question that's come in is the users with Snowflake, does it use their personal username? How does that authenticate? That is a really good question. Now, the great thing about Glean is we use the native permissions around the data source. So if I don't have access to the data source, I wouldn't be able to necessarily use that in Glean. Snowflake is one of those. So when I want to run that Snowflake agent, I did have to authenticate so that it knew who I was and the Snowflake permissions that I have access to. So we make sure that we inherit all of those permissions so that your teams are getting the correct information, but they're not seeing information they shouldn't have access to. So that is definitely something both Glean and Snowflake have built into their products.
Yeah, I'd say it works similar to any BI tool that you might have, where you can just allow at least direct auth from Glean to Snowflake, where, hey, if you don't have access to one particular part of the data set, like query says you don't have access and it just doesn't work. So that part has been really kind of assuring for our security team and folks at Brex because we don't want to have to deal with another potential incident with exposing customer data. We've created a lot of controls on the Snowflake side, and so that just pulls right through. So it's just one fewer kind of set of work for our team. Assuming everything's good on Snowflake, it propagates to Glean.
Absolutely. I don't know, Timur, if you have anything you want to add from a Snowflake side of things when it comes to data security there.
Well, we could have a whole separate webinar, of course, about that. I think it's foundational in terms of, I think that's a huge, great explanation by you, by the way, in terms of just pointing out we make it easy and ensure that the permissions and governance are inherited. I think that's one of the primary reasons that we're comfortable partnering with Snowflake with Glean, and I think it's great for customers to use that. But it is foundational. I think it's the number one question and the first thing that enterprise customers ask us, and I think our growth in government and highly regulated industries is a perfect example of that. So the fact that we have the growth coming from the most sensitive, most secure data sources is something that we talk about and point to as showing that AI is safe to use. So that's what I would chime in to say.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge thought on everyone's mind, is making sure as we adopt more AI across the industry that it's safe to use. And it's great to hear that it's not only a priority here at Glean, but at Snowflake. Well, as we approach the last few minutes of our webinar here, I would like to thank both of you for joining us here today. It was great to get to work with both of you throughout the building process, but to hear your insights as we went through this fireside chat. I know I learned a lot from what you're sharing here today, so I hope all of you on this webinar got to learn a lot as well.
Thank you for having me. It's great. Glad to be partnered.
Yeah, thanks as well. I learned a lot too. That's great to hear from Timur and you, Jessica. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you both. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you all for joining today's webinar.